Youth's sweetest memories often revolve around everyday wonders, from soda fountain fizz to adjusting TV antennas, evoking a gentler, charming past. Baby boomers, embark on a nostalgic journey with us as we recall 20 iconic things that truly shaped your era and, chances are, still hold a cherished spot in your heart. Milk delivery. Picture early morning sunlight on the front porch, revealing 2 chilled glass bottles of milk, condensation trickling down their sides. For many baby boomers, this was a familiar, comforting daily or weekly rhythm. Long before grocery store dairy aisles overflowed with plastic jugs and myriad non-dairy alternatives, milk often arrived at your doorstep in sturdy, reusable glass bottles, delivered by a milkman who likely knew your family, your dog, and your milk preference. In my neighborhood, kids raced to the front step on delivery mornings, especially Saturdays, to grab a cold bottle. Sometimes, we'd leave cookies for the milkman. In the 1960s, nearly a third of American households had milk delivered. It wasn't just convenience. It was a ritual, part of a system including cream, butter, and sometimes eggs. But progress gently nudged these routines into the past. As home refrigeration improved and supermarkets proliferated, home milk delivery faded quickly. By the early 1970s, glass bottles were mostly out, plastic containers took over, and the cheerful clink of fresh milk arriving at dawn became another sound lost to time. But for those who lived it, that memory, like the milk itself, remains refreshingly clear. Talking to an operator. Before smartphones with contact lists and speed dial, making a phone call felt like a deliberate occasion, always involving a real person guiding the connection. You didn't just punch in numbers, you first spoke to someone. That telephone operator, typically a woman with a calm, competent voice, a headset perched on her hair, and fingers flying across the switchboard, was the unseen force orchestrating every conversation. She'd be stationed at a massive board, a labyrinth of cables and lights, plugging and unplugging with smooth, practiced motions, linking your home to a local store or connecting distant towns. These operators were more than technicians. They were the quiet guardians of communication. If you needed the number for the local hardware store or wanted to reach Aunt Millie 3 states away, she was your first contact. Often, she'd even recognize your voice. This system began in 1877, when George W. Coy established the first telephone exchange in New Haven, Connecticut, inspired by Alexander Graham Bell's invention. This marked the genesis of a nationwide network. Over the years, operators became a familiar fixture of daily life. Many baby boomers can still recall the reassuring, professional tone of a real person assisting them. It was a time when long-distance communication retained a human element, making every call feel just a little more special. Drive-in movies. On warm summer evenings, a slow parade of cars, headlights bobbing, would head towards a large, open field. The magic wasn't behind velvet curtains, but under a canopy of stars. Drive-in theaters transformed movie-going into a multi-sensory event, a blend of family picnic, children's playground, and for teenagers, an ideal date spot. By the mid-20th century, these open-air cinemas were icons of American leisure. The setup had an easy charm. Drive in, find a spot, hang a crackly speaker in your car window, and settle back. Kids were often in pajamas. Parents might pass around sandwiches, and everyone hoped the windshield wipers wouldn't squeak if a summer shower appeared. What made it unforgettable wasn't always the movie itself, but the entire vibe. Laughter drifting from other cars, headlights dimming before previews, and the thrill of being together, yet private, in a crowd. For young couples, it was the go-to date. For families, a mini vacation. Though most drive-ins have vanished, the memories remain potent. Dusty dashboards, fogged-up windows, and countless unscripted moments. It was never about perfect sound or a sharp picture. It was about the simple joy of unpretentious fun. Ham radios. Remember the distinct thrill of fiddling with a knob and, as if by magic, pulling in a voice from across the country or even from a distant part of the world. Long before our pockets buzzed with smartphones and Wi-Fi blanketed our surroundings, ham radios were our portal to outreach, a more hands-on and, indeed, heartfelt mode of connection. For many boomers, that crackly, static-laced response wasn't just interference. It was the exhilarating sound of adventure, of shared curiosity, of forging a genuine connection. Early in the 20th century, those dedicated amateur radio enthusiasts, fondly termed hams, were pioneers, tinkering with Morse code and spark gap transmitters. They diligently carved out their own unique channels amidst the official government and commercial broadcasts. A significant part of the wonder was never knowing who'd answer or their origin. That was the real excitement. As the airwaves grew busier, the U.S. government introduced the Radio Act of 1912 to assign frequencies and regulate usage. Yet, the passionate spirit of amateur radio persevered. By 1917, over 6,000 licensed operators were tuning in. World War I brought a brief silence, but by 1919, hams returned, more enthusiastic than ever. While the zenith of ham radio may be behind us, anyone who experienced it can still feel that jolt of wonder at hearing a stranger's voice pierce through the static. Rotary dial phones. Do you miss the distinctive sounds a telephone once made, when it wasn't smart but efficiently connected people? I vividly recall my grandmother's dim hallway, wallpaper curling at the seams, where a rotary phone sat on a small wooden table, always beside a notepad and a perpetually non-working pen. As a child, I loved sticking my finger in the dial and spinning it just for the satisfying clicks and whirring return, even without anyone specific to call. In the 1950s and 60s, the rotary dial phone was more than an appliance. It was the hub of everyday life. These phones were built to last, often heavy enough to serve as a doorstop. They connected families, served as the main line for local news and gossip, and delivered everything from joyful announcements to somber news, one distinct ring at a time. To make a call, you'd lift the heavy receiver, listen for the dial tone, then carefully, patiently rotate the dial for each number, hoping not to air near the end and have to restart. There was no screen, no contact list, and no easy redial. But this made every call feel more deliberate, more significant. Phone numbers were committed to memory, and you learned to wait if the line was busy. Getting in touch wasn't instant, but it always felt worthwhile. Watching the first moon landing. The living room was hushed. The only sounds the TV's low hum and occasional soft, collective gasps as history unfolded in grainy, flickering black and white. On July 20th, 1969, it felt as if the entire world held its breath, watching Neil Armstrong descend the ladder and place a human boot on the moon's dusty surface. For baby boomers, many sitting cross-legged on shag rugs or perched beside parents on the family couch, that moment became deeply etched not just in global memory, but in the personal story of growing up when anything felt possible. Even with static and imperfect images beamed 250,000 miles, the event's emotion was crystal clear. It wasn't just reaching the moon. It was what that achievement represented. Immense hope, incredible human courage, and profound awe. While later generations learned about it through documentaries or Hollywood recreations, boomers experienced it live, often surrounded by family and neighbors, sharing a single television screen's glow. That night marked a significant shift, not just in understanding technology or science, but in our belief in human potential. After that, the sky no longer felt like a boundary. For those who saw it live, that incredible sense of wonder, that feeling of boundless possibility has never truly left. Jell-O Dishes. Can you recall an era when a dessert's appearance was almost paramount to its taste? I can still picture myself, a small child on my grandmother's kitchen floor in the early 60s, utterly mesmerized as she'd carefully unmold some wobbly, shimmering creation. Perhaps it was a vibrant green Jell-O ring, intricately adorned with shredded carrots and pineapple tidbits. Honestly, I was never entirely sure if it was intended for consumption or mere admiration. That kind of dish, and many like it from that period, felt more like a piece of art than simple sustenance. Most associate Jell-O with classic post-war Americana, a staple at every potluck. However, its history stretches much further back. Gelatin-based concoctions originated in medieval Europe, where they were a status symbol, enjoyed only by the wealthy at grand feasts. Their preparation was labor-intensive, involving hours of boiling animal bones for collagen, followed by filtering, flavoring, and molding. It wasn't until the 19th century, with the invention of instant gelatin, that Jell-O began gracing regular homes, eventually becoming an American classic. By the 1950s, these molded gelatin dishes were stars of the dining table, even if not universally loved for their taste. Still, they epitomized the era's experimental culinary spirit, a touch of homemaker's pride, and the desire to impress guests. So, whether you adored those jiggly marvels or secretly dreaded them, their significant, colorful role in American dining is undeniable. Typewriters. The steady, rhythmic tapping of metal keys on paper was once a familiar sound drifting from classrooms, bustling offices, and quiet home studies. Before our world was dominated by glowing screens and blinking cursors, typewriters were the trusty workhorses for students finishing papers, secretaries keeping businesses running, journalists chasing deadlines, and poets capturing thoughts. With their solid frames and unmistakable clackety-clack, these machines demanded a concentration and carefulness easily overlooked in our age of spell check and easy edits. A tiny slip of the finger often meant yanking out the paper and restarting or dabbing at the mistake with correction fluid. Typewriters weren't merely tools. They influenced how people approached writing and structured thoughts. Every sentence required intent, each paragraph patience. You learned to tune into your typing rhythm, and a satisfying ding at each line's end felt like a small, earned reward. Many baby boomers vividly recall hunting and pecking through a term paper late at night, alongside the frustration of a jammed ribbon or sticking keys when an idea was flowing. Though their time as the primary writing tool ended with home computers in the 1980s, typewriters aren't forgotten. They stand as more than old gadgets. They're tangible reminders of an era when writing was a physical, deliberate, and deeply personal endeavor. Setting the TV antenna. Whatever happened to that common family ritual where achieving a decent TV picture involved guesswork, fiddling, and sheer persistence? At my house, Sunday nights weren't just for the wonderful world of Disney. It usually began with my dad, wrench in hand, carefully navigating the roof. I'd be stationed by an open window below, shouting directions. "A little more to the left, Dad." "No, your other left." Sometimes, the picture would magically clear just long enough for a collective cheer, only to dissolve into snow if someone walked too close to the TV. Before cable television and streaming, rooftop antennas and indoor rabbit ears were our only portals to broadcast television. Getting a clear picture was half the battle, and half the peculiar charm. Dealing with blurry static, ghostly double images, or rolling horizontal lines was part of the TV watching experience. If a thunderstorm rolled in, the weather became an uninvited co-star, disrupting your show. Yet when everything aligned, when the image was sharp and sound steady, it felt like a genuine victory. Boomers will remember that watching TV wasn't passive. It took effort, family teamwork, and a sprinkle of luck. It could be frustrating, absolutely, but also strangely satisfying. Watching your favorite program often meant you truly had to earn it. One careful rooftop adjustment or desperate rabbit ear wiggle at a time. Soda fountains. Few simple pleasures compared to perching on a bright red, swiveling vinyl stool, legs dangling, awaiting the soda jerk's expert creation of your favorite ice cream float. For baby boomers, the neighborhood soda fountain was more than a spot to cool off. It was a vibrant hub of life. Often tucked into a drugstore corner or standing proudly alone, these cheerful havens hummed with laughter, local gossip, clinking glasses, and the sweet hiss of the carbonation machine. It was a welcoming place where time seemed to stretch and no one felt rushed. You didn't just quickly order a chocolate malt. You savored it, perhaps shared it with a friend, exchanging whispered secrets between sips. High school kids gathered there after school, old friends caught up over towering sundaes, and many first dates shyly began with 2 straws and a single glass. While soda fountains have mostly vanished from main streets, their warm, fizzy spirit lives on in memories. They were more than counters and menus. They were little community theaters where everyday folks were stars, sharing simple moments of connection. Even now, decades later, many boomers can almost taste that sweet cherry syrup or recall the comforting feeling of belonging. Fax machines. Who would have thought a jarring, high-pitched screech followed by a long beep could once signal an important arrival? As a kid, my dad's bulky fax machine sat in our home office corner. I picture him carefully feeding a crumpled paper into it, then all of us waiting anxiously as the machine word clicked and eventually, with a mechanical groan, spat out a copy. Half the time, the flimsy thermal paper jammed. The other half, the print faded almost before the page cooled. Before instant emails and document uploads, the fax machine was the essential bridge, the workhorse carrying contracts, letters, and urgent forms across towns, cities, and time zones. It didn't just hum with purpose. For a long while, it was the communication heartbeat for countless businesses and households. It required a dedicated phone line, patience, and a fair bit of luck for clear transmission. Faxing wasn't always smooth. We dealt with blurry pages, dropped signals, and stubborn machines. But despite it all, it worked, and for a significant period, it was revolutionary. Though modern offices have long since swapped them for sleeker digital tools, the fax machine holds a solid spot in collective memory, a relic from when successfully transmitting a single page felt like a small, satisfying triumph. Arcade games. Few places on Earth made parting with a pocket full of quarters feel like such an epic adventure as the neighborhood arcade. In the late 60s, I practically dragged my older cousin to our local arcade, barely tall enough to see over the game console on tiptoes. The mesmerizing glow from screens, the constant clatter of tokens, and the triumphant ding of a new high score felt like stepping into a magical, neon-lit wonderland where time melted away and only reflexes mattered. Before home consoles dominated living rooms, these dimly lit, buzzing arcades were ultimate hangouts for baby boomers. Early mechanical pinball machines shared space with electromechanical wonders like Sega's Periscope and the popular Rifleman Target game, making every kid feel like a sharpshooter. Then came racing games like Indy 500 and Chicago Coin Speedway, turning driving into a thrilling competitive sport long before Mario Kart. Arcades weren't just entertainment, they were oases of freedom. No parents, no homework for a while, just flashing lights, game sounds, and the thrill of chasing that elusive high score. For boomers, that joystick wasn't just plastic. It was a ticket to another dimension where, for 25 cents, you could be the hero of your own story. 5 and dime stores. Isn't it funny how simple sounds like squeaky floorboards or mixed scents of old wood, paraffin wax, and cheap candy can instantly transport you across decades? Growing up, a highlight was when my mother and I strolled to our local 5 and dime. I'd clutch precious coins, eyes wide at shelves packed with tiny treasures, bright bouncy balls, shiny tin toys, and endless rows of colorful candy. Mom, more practically, picked up socks, sewing needles, or soap, remarking on how much you could get for so little. Stores like Woolworth's, Ben Franklin, or Kresge weren't just shops. They were community cornerstones. No matter the town, a 5 and dime felt familiar. You'd greet the same cashier, overhear local news, and perhaps stop for an ice cream float at the lunch counter. These unpretentious shops offered more than bargains: connection, routine, and a sense of community. By the late 1990s, with icons like Woolworth's closing, that era quietly faded. Still, for many baby boomers, the memory remains vivid, a time when a pocket full of nickels filled a small bag with delights, and a leisurely afternoon browsing felt like it could last forever. Green stamps. Nothing declared savvy shopper like a kitchen drawer crammed with S&H green stamps, savor booksome half-filled, others bursting alongside a well-used glue stick. For many baby boomers, collecting these tiny, perforated green rectangles was a quiet thrill. This old-school rewards program turned grocery runs and gas station trips into miniature treasure hunts. I picture myself at the kitchen table with Mom, meticulously licking and pressing each stamp into its booklet spot. She'd joke that someday, with enough stamps, we'd get a new blender or maybe even a TV. The idea was simple. For every dollar spent at participating stores, you earned stamps. Enough full books could be redeemed for items from thick reward catalogs. Flipping through those catalogs felt as magical as browsing the Sears Christmas wish book. From kitchen appliances and towels to toys, those pages filled with possibility taught us delayed gratification. Green stamps weren't just about free stuff. They made spending feel purposeful, bringing a tangible accomplishment to mundane shopping. Though the program faded with retail shifts, for those who lived it, the memory of flipping through sticky back pages and dreaming of rewards remains surprisingly sweet. Saturday morning cartoons. How can a big bowl of sugary cereal and flickering TV images feel like an entire cherished era in one peaceful morning? In the early 1960s, my best pal Tommy and I would race to my house, often before sunrise, in pajamas, clutching blankets and cereal like Cocoa Puffs or Sugar Smacks. We'd plan ourselves before the glowing TV, giggling through mouthfuls as Bugs Bunny outwitted Elmer Fudd, or the Mystery Machine Gang chased figures through haunted amusement parks. Those Saturday mornings felt specially carved out for kids. Networks seized the opportunity, filling hours with color, laughter, and imagination. Early shows like The Rough and Ready Show and Beanie and Cecil kicked off a parade of unforgettable characters. The Jetsons, Yogi Bear, the Flintstones, and many more. For those few magical hours, kids ruled the living room. No homework, no chores, just pure wide-eyed wonder and sticky fingers on the remote. Though this tradition has largely faded with on-demand streaming, the warm, cozy memory lingers. It wasn't just the shows, it was the feeling of being young, free, and joyfully lost in the moment. Watching I Love Lucy. When Lucy Ricardo was on screen, laughter took on a special rhythm, loud, contagious, echoing through living rooms like a beloved, universally known song. When I Love Lucy first aired in 1951, it didn't just launch a TV show, it ignited a nationwide obsession. Lucille Ball's brilliant blend of charm, chaos, and comedic genius made Lucy Ricardo a household name. Her weekly escapades felt like they belonged to all of us. It was more than a sitcom. For many, Lucy, Ricky, Fred, and Ethel were practically family. I clearly remember sitting cross-legged on the living room rug, trading excited glances with my best friend, as we watched Lucy desperately fail to keep up with the Candy Factory conveyor belt. We'd burst into laughter every time, no matter how many reruns we'd seen. Her world was delightfully silly, yet incredibly comforting, a shared, happy escape during simpler times. Beyond laughs, the show pioneered TV production techniques that shaped modern television. Multiple cameras, live studio audiences, and the rerun model. But for baby boomers, its impact felt deeper. I Love Lucy was a reason for families and friends to gather, pause their lives for half an hour, and laugh together, week after week. Even now, decades later, Lucy's charm hasn't faded. She's still there, in black and white brilliance, teaching us to find joy even amidst a mess. The first home computers. Can you recall that almost magical moment when machines first started speaking a language we understood, right in our homes? For many baby boomers, the arrival of early personal computers felt like opening a door to a new world that hadn't existed in our daily lives. Initially, they looked like oversized, clunky keyboards hooked up to repurposed TV sets. But to the curious minds of the late 1970s and early 1980s, these devices were pure magic. We'd gather around, marveling at glowing green cursors, listening to the whirring and clicking of floppy disk drives, and thrilling at typing our names and seeing them appear on screen. This was the dawn of the digital revolution, sparked in humble garages by bold thinkers like Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, who launched Apple Computer in 1976. A year later, their Apple II introduced everyday Americans to color graphics, memory expansion, and the idea that home computing wasn't just for university labs or corporations. Equally iconic was the Commodore 64, defining countless childhoods and shaping careers. It wasn't just about learning programming or playing blocky video games, though that was fun. It was about the incredible sense of possibility. For the first time, ordinary families had computing power at their fingertips, and the living room transformed into a potential launchpad to the future. It was the beginning of a new technological language, and boomers were fortunate to be among its first fluent speakers. Cassette tapes. I still recall the soft, satisfying click of a cassette deck's play button, followed by a gentle hiss before the music began, like opening a secret window to your private world of sound. For baby boomers, cassette tapes were more than just listening. They were about tangible presence. Holding a cassette meant something. You could see the tape spools turning, hear the whir of rewind or fast forward, and feel the weight of a personally crafted playlist. Whether bought, new, or painstakingly copied from a friend's LP, cassettes gave music and intimacy today's effortless streaming can't replicate. They also invited creativity. Making a mixtape wasn't just a fun afternoon. It was a personal art form. You'd sit by the stereo, finger hovering over the record button, trying to time the song start perfectly. Imperfect intros or outros were part of the charm. Then, Sony's Walkman gave music wings. Suddenly, favorite songs could go anywhere. School, work, long walks. Music became mobile, deeply personal, and more emotionally resonant. Cassette tapes may have faded from everyday use, but their spirit endures, especially in how we create digital playlists and in fond memories of when music lived tangibly in your pocket, not invisibly in the cloud. Vinyl records. What was it about carefully lowering a delicate needle onto a spinning black disc that made a room feel so alive with sound? For baby boomers, vinyl records weren't quirky collector's items. They were the soundtrack of our lives. That crackle and pop before the music, those warm, rich tones filling the air like smoke, were integral to the experience. You didn't just listen to a record. You spent quality time with it. You'd pore over elaborate album art, read liner notes, memorize track orders, and treat your turntable with reverence. Owning music meant possessing something tangible. You physically flipped the record, learned to clean delicate grooves, and sometimes adjusted the tone arm to prevent skips. It was an imperfect system, but that imperfection, that hands-on involvement, added soul. Unlike digital playlists that can vanish with a tap, vinyl had real weight, physically and emotionally. Now, as new generations discover vinyl's charm, those records are spinning back into hearts and homes. For boomers, its resurgence isn't just retro. It's a familiar echo from a time when music had a true physical presence, and every song began with a lovely, gentle hum of anticipation. Jukeboxes, the soft glow of colorful neon, the clatter of diner dishes, and the unmistakable clunk-click of a coin in a jukebox slot, these were signature sounds of growing up. For baby boomers, the jukebox was more than a flashy machine in a soda shop or tavern corner. It was a reliable companion, ready to spin your favorite tune, set the mood for a nervous first date, or fill a room with doo-wop harmonies, early rock and roll energy, or Motown soul. With its gleaming chrome, mesmerizing lights, and neat rows of buttons, a 1K10, the jukebox made choosing music a visible, tactile, shared experience. In an era before personalized playlists and isolating earbuds, music lived out loud. It was shared across diner booths, melodies echoing over milkshakes and laughter, bass lines pulsing through the floor. It wasn't just what song you played, but who you were with and how that melody made you feel in that unrepeatable moment. Though modern times have tucked music into our pockets, the jukebox remains a powerful symbol of shared experience. For many boomers, it vividly represents a time when a single, carefully chosen song had the magical power to light up an entire room, and perhaps your heart along with it. Hello again, cherished viewers of Gold Days USA. If your home featured even just one of the items we're discussing today back in the 1960s, your neighbors probably assumed you were quite well off. In that decade, affluence wasn't always about grand estates or fancy boats. It often manifested in everyday comforts that left others impressed. Let's journey back and explore 25 subtle yet significant indicators that suggested you were living comfortably in the 60s. Two-story house. In the mid-1960s, a common way to identify a more substantial house on the block was often its height. During a period when single-level ranch homes were highly popular, a two-story residence naturally stood out, both physically and as a symbol. It suggested more than just increased living area. It was a quiet assertion of greater means. Having a second floor usually indicated more financial capacity, more overall space, and potentially a different architectural preference compared to the neighbors in their one-level dwellings. Internally, the layout often provided better separation of living spaces, potentially more bedrooms, maybe a dedicated study, or a formal dining room used infrequently. This verticality offered enhanced privacy, distinguishing adult and children's areas. Above all, it signified that the family had achieved a level of prosperity that allowed for a larger, multi-level home, a visible marker of upward mobility. If you're enjoying this look back, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell to catch our next trip down memory lane. Two cars in the driveway. Can you recall when having a second car parked outside was a key part of the American aspiration? During the 1960s, that additional vehicle signified more than just transportation. It was a visible symbol of achievement. While most households made do with one car, possessing two suggested a level of financial comfort and perhaps a more luxurious way of life. Hearing a kid boast about his mother having her own car could leave others wide-eyed. And if one happened to be a Cadillac with its distinctive tail fins, that represented undeniable prestige. Beyond status, two cars offered real independence, particularly for housewives needing to run errands. In a time when vehicle ownership itself felt significant, two cars spoke volumes about having arrived. Stereo systems. Moving beyond basic radios or simple record players, Only those with considerable means, or devoted audiophiles with the budget to match, could acquire the impressive audio equipment that often served as stylish furniture. In the 1960s, a high-fidelity, hi-fi stereo system frequently manifested as a prominent status symbol, typically housed within a large, beautifully crafted wooden console that dominated a section of the living room. These units were often substantial pieces, designed to look as good as they sounded. Their purpose was to reproduce music with exceptional clarity and richness, turning listening into a focused experience. Families might gather around to appreciate the superior sound quality. Acquiring such sophisticated systems, which might include powerful amplifiers and large, high-quality speakers, represented a major financial commitment, along with the ongoing expense of building a vinyl record collection. The immersive sound quality was impressive, as was the statement it made about the owner's prosperity and appreciation for quality. American Express card. Imagine settling a bill in a way that instantly signaled your standing in the world. During the 1960s, presenting an American Express card achieved just that. It functioned less like plastic money and more like a discreet, respected emblem of social position. Credit wasn't widely used for daily purchases then. Cash and checks predominated. Only a select group carried charge cards, especially one as deliberately exclusive as Amex, known for targeting affluent customers with higher fees and stricter approvals. Using it at upscale restaurants or hotels definitely drew attention. With the introduction of the Amex Gold Card mid-decade, the card became even more strongly associated with a lifestyle involving travel, fine dining, and access to privileged circles. In a time of greater financial discretion, carrying that card quietly conveyed success. Thinking back, did your family have any of these items in the 60s? Which one evoked the most pride? 2 bathrooms. What was the significance of a family having 2 bathrooms in the 1960s home? Quite simply, it suggested fewer morning bottlenecks and a marked improvement in household convenience and status. The majority of houses from that era or earlier were equipped with just 1 bathroom, which often saw heavy use. The experience of waiting in line during the morning rush was common. Therefore, discovering a friend's home had a guest bathroom or a second full bath felt extraordinarily luxurious. It wasn't solely about comfort. It represented a significant investment in plumbing, fixtures, and home value that wasn't accessible to everyone. It pointed to financial ease and embraced modern residential design. For parents, it offered privacy. For children, less conflict. It subtly communicated that the family operated with a greater degree of comfort and resources. Private bedroom for each child. If you were a child in the 1960s with your very own bedroom, consider yourself extremely fortunate, akin to having a personal suite. Back then, it was common for families to house 2 or even 3 children together in one room, often utilizing bunk beds. Consequently, having 4 walls and a door entirely to oneself felt like a remarkable luxury. It implied more than just ample room. It indicated the family could afford a larger residence, one with enough bedrooms to spare without converting spaces meant for other uses. For those lucky children, their room was a personal haven where they could express individuality, perhaps choosing paint colors or specific wallpaper. This provided a rare, early sense of personal space, privacy, and independence when sharing was the norm. 2 living rooms. A subtle indicator of elevated living was entering a house and discovering it contained 2 distinct living areas. Most families counted themselves lucky to have one main gathering space, but encountering a second, formal living room, often kept immaculately preserved for appearances, signaled a different standard of living. This formal space was frequently untouched, its furniture sometimes even encased in protective plastic that crackled if sat upon. Draperies might remain closed to prevent fading, every cushion perfectly arranged. It wasn't merely about interior design. It represented a commitment to presentation, social grace, and maintaining certain standards. The other, more casual living area hosted everyday activities. That pristine, reserved room, however, symbolized control, elegance, and a financial ability to dedicate space solely for impression, telling visitors a lot about the household's priorities and means. International travel. While domestic air travel itself signified status, embarking on journeys beyond the United States for leisure during the 1960s positioned a family within an exceptionally privileged group. Trips to European capitals like Paris or Rome, or even more distant destinations, were experiences most Americans only read about. Undertaking international travel necessitated not just the substantial cost of overseas flights, but also obtaining passports, arranging for extended time off work, navigating foreign currencies, and possessing a degree of global awareness. Returning with foreign souvenirs or sending postcard from abroad served as concrete evidence of participating in a global sphere, reflecting a level of financial freedom and cultural engagement far removed from everyday American life. It implied a broader perspective and considerable resources. Wearing a fur coat. Appearing in public adorned in a genuine fur coat during the 1960s conveyed far more than just protection from the cold. It was an immediate, unambiguous declaration of status and sophistication. In an era where practical wool coats were standard winter attire for most women, real fur, whether opulent mink, stylish fox, or even ermine trim, was largely associated with the upper echelons of society. These garments were not everyday purchases, but rather significant investments, often given as important gifts or treasured as heirlooms. The cost alone could be formidable, comparable to major household expenses, and the need for specialized storage and care further emphasized their exclusivity. In the 60s, fur symbolized tradition, luxury, and a certain quiet authority. A woman draped in fur projected an image of belonging to a world of privilege and established elegance. Flying on airplanes for vacation. There was an era when boarding an airplane felt like entering an exclusive realm characterized by smart attire, courteous service, and an atmosphere of distinction. Throughout the 1960s, air travel wasn't merely getting from A to B. It was a special occasion, a privilege largely unattainable for the average person. Families choosing to fly for holidays were widely regarded as having achieved significant success, as commercial flights were neither common nor affordable for most. While typical families embarked on long road trips in the station wagon, wealthier individuals ascended into sleek jets bound for places like Disneyland or Florida's beaches. The steep cost of airline tickets made flying an infrequent luxury. Airports themselves possessed a certain glamour, with travelers often dressed impeccably. Every detail suggested sophistication. Traveling by air for leisure was a clear indicator of belonging to a higher economic stratum. Having a dishwasher. Owning an automatic dishwasher in the 1960s immediately set your household apart. Neighbors likely saw you as enjoying a truly prosperous lifestyle. Remember, this was an era where sink loads of dishes were a daily, manual chore for most families. So, possessing a machine to handle that task seemed incredibly advanced. A dishwasher was more than useful. It was a clear status symbol. It often shone under the kitchen lights, a testament to the household ability to afford modern convenience and save time. These appliances represented a major purchase, signaling disposable income beyond basic necessities. Your kitchen suddenly felt like a showcase of modern living. That mechanical hum doing the work. For many back then, it felt almost magical. Color TV, especially more than one. Few domestic acquisitions in the 1960s generated as much excitement or neighborly admiration as a color television set. For families bringing one home, it represented more than just improved viewing. It was a vibrant symbol of modern prosperity. As most households still gathered around black and white screens, color TV offered an almost enchanting visual richness, making shows like Bonanza dazzlingly vivid. And if a household possessed more than one television set, that wasn't just about multiple viewing options. It clearly signaled substantial financial resources. Color TVs were a major expense early in the decade, costing what might amount to weeks or months of an average salary. Those who could afford one often became neighborhood focal points for special televised events. A color TV didn't just alter how you saw the world on screen. It influenced how others perceive your place in it. Owning a vacation home. What sort of household required duplicates of essentials like bedding, kitchenware, and perhaps even major appliances, one set for their main residence, and another for the cottage or the cabin? It was the kind that possessed a vacation home in the 1960s, a truly significant indicator of substantial wealth. At that time, most people concentrated on the mortgage for their primary dwelling. Therefore, the ability to acquire and maintain a second property placed a family in an elite category. Whether it was a lakeside retreat, a mountain hideaway, or a seaside bungalow, owning a vacation home was more than a simple luxury. It represented a whole lifestyle. It involved not only the initial purchase, but also ongoing costs for taxes, maintenance, utilities, furnishings, and travel. While typical family vacations involved motel stays, having one's own dedicated getaway spot was tangible evidence of significant financial achievement. TV guide subscription. Long before digital guides or recording devices, the premier method for knowing television schedules involved a small, glossy magazine readily available at checkout counters. In the 1960s, regularly purchasing TV guide signified more than just planning viewing habits. It was a subtle indicator of being connected to modern culture. While many relied on the basic newspaper listings, spending the extra change on TV guide suggested a bit of disposable income and a deeper interest in television programming. This compact publication offered more than just schedules. It featured colorful photographs, celebrity interviews, and previews of upcoming shows, bringing a touch of Hollywood into homes. In an era of limited and fixed broadcast schedules, TV Guide provided a sense of organization and engagement with the burgeoning world of television, feeling like a small but regular indulgence. Sending children to private school. Few things distinguished a child more clearly in the neighborhood than the sight of them heading off in a tailored uniform, perhaps carrying a formal school bag, while others wore typical play clothes. During the 1960s, enrolling children in private school was often interpreted not just as an educational preference, but as a significant statement about the family's financial capacity and social aspirations. The majority attended local public schools. Private institutions, however, often featured distinct uniforms, sometimes specialized curricula, and notably, substantial tuition fees that were beyond the reach of average families. These schools were frequently perceived as offering more than academics. They promised valuable networks, rigorous discipline, and a refined image aimed at facilitating future opportunities, possibly including pathways to prestigious universities. While most households managed budgets carefully, these families invested significantly in providing an exclusive educational experience, signaling both means and ambition. In-ground swimming pool. By the mid to late 1960s, arguably nothing declared you've truly arrived more emphatically than having a private, built-in swimming pool in your backyard. While typical families relied on sprinklers or trips to crowded public pools for summer relief, the select few possessing shimmering, turquoise water just steps from their house inhabited a different, more luxurious sphere. Installing an in-ground pool was a major construction expense, and it entailed ongoing costs for maintenance, chemicals, utilities, and significant responsibility. However, for families who could manage it, the lifestyle enhancement was immense. Backyard barbecues transformed into desirable pool parties, positioning their home as the neighborhood's summer social hub. While above-ground pools offered fun, an in-ground pool signified permanent, integrated elegance, a private oasis that served as the ultimate glistening emblem of success. Central air conditioning. Entering a residence cooled by central air conditioning during a 1960s summer felt akin to stepping into the future, or at least an upscale establishment. While the majority battled the heat using window fans or perhaps a single, noisy window AC unit struggling to cool one room, central air conveyed a different message: consistent coolness, advanced technology, and understated affluence. It wasn't merely about escaping the heat. It contributed to a home feeling more refined, controlled, and contemporary. The experience of visiting such a home was memorable. The air felt uniformly cool and less humid, lending the house an air of greater elegance. People took notice when HVAC installation trucks appeared on the street. Central air conditioning was a major expenditure, both for the system itself and the subsequent higher energy costs. Only families with stable, comfortable incomes could typically afford it, making their cool homes discreet indicators of success. Riding lawnmower. Witnessing someone navigate their lawn atop a riding mower in the 1960s often felt like observing suburban royalty. At that time, most homeowners were pushing manual mowers across their yards, especially during hot weather. Therefore, the sight of a neighbor effortlessly cruising on a riding machine was quite impressive. These mowers, offered by brands like John Deere or Wheel Horse, represented a substantial purchase, costing hundreds of dollars, a significant amount for the average budget. The appeal wasn't solely about reducing labor. It was tied to the image of maintaining a pristine lawn, which had become a mark of suburban pride. A riding mower suggested a larger property requiring such equipment and, more importantly, the financial capacity to acquire this top-tier lawn care tool. It was a clear indicator that the family possessed considerable resources. Owning a yacht or recreational boat. Perhaps the most definitive symbol of recreational wealth in 1960s waterside communities was boat ownership. We aren't referring to a simple fishing skiff, but rather a substantial recreational vessel, maybe a stylish runabout like a Chris Craft, a cabin cruiser suitable for weekends away, or even a modest sailing yacht, complete with a name on the stern and polished fittings. Back then, owning and operating such a boat was firmly in the realm of luxury lifestyles, demanding considerable financial outlay. While average families focused on home upkeep or local activities on weekends, those maintaining a boat at the marina belonged to a distinct socioeconomic group. These vessels were expensive to purchase and entailed continuous expenses for upkeep, fuel, mooring, insurance, and storage. Consequently, only the genuinely affluent could typically sustain this hobby. Gliding away from the dock signified a level of success that needed no verbal explanation. Professionally landscaped yard. While owning a riding mower suggested a large lawn and the resources for easy upkeep, having a yard professionally landscaped indicated a further commitment to aesthetics and affluence. This involved more than just neat grass. It meant deliberate garden design, careful selection of plantings, possibly including mature or exotic specimens, installation of features like stone paths or water elements, and crucially, often hiring professional gardeners for regular maintenance. A professionally landscaped yard demonstrated that the owners viewed their property's exterior as a vital component of its overall prestige, investing substantial funds not only in the initial creation, but also in ongoing expert care. It signaled a desire for curated natural beauty and the economic capacity to achieve it through specialized services. Having a housekeeper. If the lady of the house wasn't routinely burdened with simultaneous cooking, cleaning, and child-minding duties, it's possible the family employed domestic help. In the 1960s, hiring someone to clean the home, even part-time, was more than mere convenience. It was a fairly clear signal of the family's comfortable financial standing. Most middle-class households relied on the wife to manage all domestic tasks. Therefore, families utilizing outside assistance, whether a full-time maid or a weekly cleaning lady, operated on a different economic level. Visiting such a home often revealed gleaming surfaces, perfectly vacuumed carpets, and an overall sense of meticulous order. It wasn't just about cleanliness. It suggested that someone had the dedicated time and resources to maintain the home impeccably. In an era of valuing appearances, employing a housekeeper subtly communicated prosperity and social standing. Were there other status symbols prevalent in the 1960s that haven't been covered here? We're eager to read your recollections and thoughts in the comment section. Flock Christmas tree. A layer of artificial snow, meticulously applied, could instantly transform a standard Christmas tree into an eye-catching holiday centerpiece. During the 1960s, obtaining a flock tree, typically bright white, though sometimes in pastel shades, looking fluffy and festive was not a casual choice. It commanded a higher price than traditional evergreen trees, and its presence in a home's front window was certainly noted by passersby. These trees often resembled professional displays, perhaps adorned with coordinated decorations and intriguing bubble lights. Some families even paid extra for professional flocking services. This additional cost and effort highlighted a focus on presentation and current trends. It served as a symbol of taste and the financial ability to opt for something more unique and stylized during the festive season, making it feel rather exclusive. Fine jewelry. Similar to how a fur coat signified luxury in attire, the ownership of fine jewelry items crafted from precious metals and featuring genuine gems like diamonds, sapphires, or quality pearls acted as a subtle yet powerful testament to a woman's social standing and the family's financial stability. These were not everyday accessories, but rather significant pieces, perhaps a notable diamond ring, a classic pearl necklace, or elegant jeweled earrings, generally reserved for formal events or special evenings out. Acquiring such items represented a major expense, reflecting disposable income and an appreciation for enduring value and timeless style, often carrying sentimental significance as gifts. Fine jewelry quietly communicated established wealth and access to a world where such luxurious adornments were attainable. Built-in ovens and cooktops. Expanding on kitchen advancements like the dishwasher, the installation of built-in wall ovens and separate countertop cooktops represented another leap in 1960s kitchen luxury. Differing from the common freestanding range unit, this configuration, with the oven integrated seamlessly into the wall and a distinct cooktop surface, projected an incredibly modern and customized feel. This setup demanded more than just purchasing appliances. It required thoughtful kitchen design, specialized cabinetry, and incurred higher overall costs. It indicated homeowners who were investing significantly in creating an efficient, aesthetically advanced cooking environment, prioritizing integrated design over standard solutions. This feature often appeared in newly remodeled kitchens, suggesting a family keen on the latest home conveniences and appearances. Well-stocked home bar, often situated near the formal living room or alongside the hi-fi system. A dedicated home bar, amply supplied, serve as another indicator of a sophisticated lifestyle and penchant for entertaining during the 1960s. This typically involved more than a few stray bottles. It often meant a specific piece of furniture or built-in area featuring a wide assortment of spirits, liqueurs, mixers, appropriate glassware for various cocktails, and essential bar tools. Maintaining such a setup showed that the homeowners not only enjoyed cocktails, but were also equipped to host guests with style and knowledge. It suggested familiarity with drinks beyond the basics and the financial ability to maintain a diverse inventory. It functioned as a social hub for adult gatherings, representing a chic and hospitable way of life. Was there a particular memory we talked about that brought an extra big smile to your face? We'd be thrilled if you'd share it with us in the comment section below. And of course, if you enjoyed this little trip down memory lane, please don't forget to give this a like, subscribe, and maybe even click that little bell icon so you'll never miss another wonderful blast from the past. Thanks so much for watching.